Okay, great. We are here to review the LMI leadership survey that we did in December 2022. The intent is to do this every half year. We had some discussions. We were talking with clients. We were aware of larger pieces of research that were highlighting certain trends, picking up on certain things. We thought it would be great to know what the organizations and the leaders that we're dealing with, what were the challenges they were facing, what was the reality on the ground. So we're here, LMI-UK, LMI Ireland, Roisin, Maurice, Mark and myself to talk through it, share our reflections. For what it's worth, hope that will be interesting to you, and of course make available the document and the data so that you can have a look at that. And we do give a lot of thanks to all of those that participated and filled this out. So we're really grateful for that. It's a really interesting and we think useful bit of research. Talk very, very quickly through the survey that we sent out, picking up on what we thought were some of the key areas. So a section on political, economic and social environment, questions around external economic factors, political change, and specifically Brexit. We did a section on working practice. It's obviously been a hot topic of late, remote, hybrid, office-based working, some questions there. Questions around specifically your team, so leaders giving a sense of how they felt their team was in terms of things like purpose and strategy and clear goals, roles and responsibilities, values and culture. A section on staff, particularly recruitment, retention, and development. And then finally, there's some questions relating specifically to you as a leader and what were some of those key challenges. So that was the questionnaire. We'll get into this. Good afternoon, everybody. Some
afternoon.
Initial comments on reflections on what we've discovered.
Oh.
Silent. Okay. So I think, was there anything totally surprising, as in blow you out of the water? I don't think so, but I think there was a lot of, if you go deep into some of the data, there's a lot of questions, I think, for us as a team there, really, as to what our clients are experiencing and what the real issues are facing those. So a very broad answer, Nick, but yeah.
I think there's a couple of surprising things in it, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But I think the low impact of Brexit that was fed back, I think that surprised me, particularly as I was watching one of the lunchtime news. I got suckered into watching one of the lunchtime news things yesterday, and the subject was Brexit, and it was a big issue. Everybody, loads of comments about it's been a disaster. But the other one, and I'm sure we'll dwell on it a little bit longer, was the amount of people who said they got a fairly strong sense of purpose. And I don't know. That surprised me. I've got to say, that really surprised me based on the feedback I get working out in the field with my clients.
Sure.
Those were the two things that sort of leapt off the page for me based on the results.
Sure. Shall we dive into them section by section and pick up, because
remind ourselves.
Data is always interesting, and survey responses and who ticks what and what that actually means is a fascinating one. So what we'll do in terms of logistics is we'll share the hard data for each section on the screen. We'll have some discussions of it, and we've kind of put that into some graphs and things that are easier to understand, so we can share those as well. So first section, political, economic, social environment. This is what came up. So we asked, to what degree are these ones having an impact? So no impact through to high impact, so 0 to 5. So economic factors, we've got political change, and we've got Brexit. Mark mentioned that Brexit wasn't having as big an impact as we thought it might do, and certainly as the national media seems to be suggesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Sorry,
Maurice, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because more than half of the respondents said that external economic factors were having a medium to high impact, but actually the political change and issues relating to Brexit were much lower, down around 20%. So it's interesting, right? Like the media is full of it. Now, one thing to bear in mind is this was a survey done across Ireland and the UK, and maybe the Irish response to this, Brexit is less of an issue for them.
Yeah.
That's worth bearing in mind. But also worth bearing in mind, these are our own clients that we're talking to, and perhaps not representative of the whole economy. But it is surprising, Mark. You're right on that. I think all four of us expected that these things would be scored higher. Interesting that they're not.
Yeah. I mean, it might be as well also that again, even though it's only was it December?
December.
This shift in thinking over that period, pre-Christmas, post-Christmas. I mean, Brexit's sort of been off the agenda for a while, hasn't it? It's been off the discussion table.
Yeah.
It's almost forgotten, and maybe for whatever reason, we've shifted across to the new year, and it's right. Let's get Brexit back on the table. It's certainly all over the press and the media. So maybe if we took this again in 2 months, Brexit would be recognised as a bigger issue. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. And certainly, picking up on what Maurice said, what is clear for everybody, and certainly my experience of talking to different organizations and leaders is, for some it's had a significant impact, but for a decent number it hasn't. Yeah. But the general economic environment, cost of living, fuel, supply chain stuff, that is very definitely, and that came out in this, that those are having an impact, and so then the need to adopt really strong strategies, goals, plans to be able to thrive or survive and thrive in difficult times, which organizations that have been around for a while have done previously in 2008 and going back to previous recessions and different things. Many have done so absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that section? Anything else, or will we move on? Is there any other comments?
I guess the only thing about that, there's not a great deal people can do about it. So why dwell on it? It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff in the survey that we've got control over, I guess.
Exactly.
Or more control over.
Yeah. And perhaps we can just end this section looking at the graph that we've put in our document that shares that. And so, particularly highlighting the degree to which people were responding that these things, particularly external economic factors, were having an impact. So you got a lot of 3s to the medium, 4s, and then a decent number of 5s. So we'll move on from that section. So the second section was all about working practice and remote hybrid office working, the thing that's been massive since the COVID pandemic, the new normal. What is that? Big organizations coming out with their policies. Have you got to be in 3 days a week, or we're going to be completely flexible? And certainly I'm still having conversations a lot about this kind of issue. And so, thoughts on this section. We've got the highlights on there. 28% saying effective communication and collaboration. That was a challenge, being able to do that well. Roughly 1 in 3, that's the case. And then slightly higher, but not much higher, the motivation and engagement of staff being a challenge.
I'm quite surprised that these aren't actually higher than this, because from what I experience personally, my clients, this, the hybrid working, and it's still kind of finding its norm, if there's ever going to be a norm again. And really that communication, motivation, engagement, it's an everyday challenge. And to me, those numbers seem quite low by comparison to what I experience. I don't know what the rest of you guys feel.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that comment. I think what the survey is telling us is that some of the physical things are less important than we might have thought. The workplace issues, the kind of the workstations, all the physical kind of aspects. But actually, it's the important bit around collaboration, communication, motivation, engagement. They're the pieces that are falling out. But you're right. About a third of people are saying they're an issue. I would have guessed it was going to be higher than that from talking to people. But this is what makes this interesting, isn't it? It throws up some things that we wouldn't be expecting. And again, maybe this is, not to get caught up on the hype around some of these issues. This is, this is the big kind of topic you chat about over coffee or over a drink in the evening, isn't it? But perhaps it's not as to the forefront as we may think when people actually answer a questionnaire honestly in terms of how it's affecting them.
But also maybe remember that this is actually a leader's perspective as well.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
It is.
I
Yes,
guess,
yes.
I mean, if you flip that argument a little bit, as a leader of a business, if I've got a business of 60 people and 20 of them are having an issue with collaboration and communication, that could have a huge impact on the performance of my business. We might think it's fairly low compared to our expectation, but as a leader, if a third of my team aren't fully engaged in doing their jobs for whatever reason based on this, that's going to have a huge impact on productivity and performance and the morale of the other 40 people on my work team. If you got 1 in 3 is miserable, 1 in 3 is struggling a wee bit, so it's significant. It might not be as big as we think, but that will have a huge impact on the business. Absolutely, I think.
Yeah.
But we can also people can take encouragement from that, because 2/3 of people are managing. So I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, there's nothing we can do, it's hybrid working, it's a mess, it's whatever. And actually there is something you can do, because 2/3 of people are managing it, they're taking responsibility for it, they're doing something about it. So if you are in that third, or there's a third of your team, it's what can you do about it?
I wonder if what this is partly telling us, and that would be backed up by my own kind of observations and interactions, is operationally we've got this sorted. People can meet on Teams and Zoom, and they can kind of have virtual catch-ups, and they can do what needs to be done. But it's the kind of the human factor, the really getting involved with one another, sparking really good new ideas, following things through, that is perhaps that bit that is still not quite something that everybody's got to grips with. In the same way that collaboration, communication, for example, has always been a challenge, even if people are in the same office. The talk of silos and departments kind of doing their own thing has always been around, certainly as long as I can remember in this sort of world. And when teams, and I've facilitated a couple of sessions recently where teams have got together in person, having not done so much recently. And even again, this has been going on a while, just the sense of enjoyment and appreciation and value that's in the room as people meet physically has been huge.
Absolutely. And I think actually there's another challenge there as well with that hybrid working, in the fact that during COVID, when everybody was working remotely, then everybody was super efficient, on Teams, on Zoom, on time. But now people are going to physical meetings. They're supposed to be on Teams, and there's this kind of running to catch up all the time. And people are feeling this other layer of pressure on this hybrid working, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Shall we haven't put up the actual data on this section. So working practice, remote, hybrid, office-based. So these were the 5 questions that we asked, and then those were the actual percentages. So interesting. 0% saying clear expectations of team members was having a high impact, but 25% a sort of medium high impact, and 28% medium. So that again, those things around clarity, clear expectations, again, availability, accessibility, generally okay. It's it's that kind of little bit extra, I think, that is perhaps still the challenge.
It's that adequate workspace provision. Looking at that, people don't care, do they, really?
Those perhaps speak of adaptability. I'm okay in the corner of my bedroom.
Maybe a bit disappointing for the furniture sales people in the room. We don't care.
Shall we go on to the next section? So next section was about your team, and we'll go just because it's already up. we'll go straight into the data here. So rating your team, and this is Mark, you mentioned about the perhaps partly surprise, massively kind of high scores around sense of purpose, around positive culture, clear roles and responsibilities, strategy, all of those kinds of things.
Everything seems to be very, very high scoring, everything in order in this section. Everybody doing really well here.
This is the leader scoring though. So the leader is scoring, saying that their team has clear sense of purpose, agreed values, clear roles. Interesting, isn't it? I wonder what their team would say.
I think that's a great point.
Yes.
Really
Such a skeptic, Maurice.
Yeah. Not like you at all, Maurice.
I think they call it positive realism, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us, on reflection of those scores, were wow, that's high. That is high. And yet the one that sticks out like a sore thumb is clear goals, and that's quite low.
Yeah.
There's something not quite back. Looking at that from my perspective, through the eyes of a leader, I can see it. Through the eyes of a member of the team, I think it'd be interesting if we asked the same questions of the same companies of their people, which would be a really interesting reflection back for their leaders. The yin and yang of that is, this is what I think, this is what they think. That might be a worthwhile follow-up. Who knows?
Always a hugely valuable thing to do. This is what I think. What do you think? And in kind of simple terms, these are people generally that we've worked with, and the leadership programs we do talk a lot about values and purpose and helping people define those, even goals, and particularly the lowest scoring was around well-defined plans to deliver on goals. So it's we've got some of the big picture stuff in place. It's the day-to-day operational stuff of making it happen in a timely way, meeting deadlines, the right people spending the right amount of time doing the right kind of things. Goes back to some of that communication, collaboration stuff as well, I think.
And also the culture bit. If you look at the positive workplace culture as well, all very high. All very confident.
But yet, almost half of respondents saying they don't have strong plans in place to achieve their goals. So it kind of feels slightly misplaced confidence, doesn't it? In that, I don't know, you would hope that people had strong plans in place to achieve their goals. Goal setting is what LMI bases itself on. This is what we feel is important. And what we're seeing is that half of clients here are responding, saying they don't have strong plans in place. So there's obviously a huge opportunity there for them to improve their own performance by getting those plans in place.
And really, it's not realistic with I think what we know, as in how many clients do we have that have all of those great things in place, as in the culture, the purpose, the strategy, everything's in place, and yet really what are they there to do? They're there to deliver on the business, and they don't have the plans to deliver on the goals. It's not as strong as the other. That just doesn't seem, something is amiss with this one.
Interesting. So. We would probably worth just saying for anybody that's filled this out or hasn't but is watching this with interest, go and ask the questions, do some digging. The unearthing, the value in these sorts of things is unearthing how things are actually in your organization, and certainly it's worth doing that. And if you're looking at this and you are not the leader or one of the senior leaders, and you think, let's kind of have this discussion from that way as well, and so these are our perspectives. Certainly the feedback between different layers of leadership within the organization is really valuable. Shall we go on to the next one? Perhaps the one that kind of was the starkest in terms of what it highlighted, the section around staff, and particularly recruitment, retention and development. So this is the pie chart here, where you had 66% of people saying that recruitment of the best people to fill roles was a big or a fairly big issue. People had answered 4 or 5 as that being a major thing. And then you can see for the other areas It was, some things around salary expectation, development of staff, 25%. So that was a fairly big issue. If we go to the specific data on that, that's what that looks like there.
Yeah. I mean, we're hearing it and we're seeing it all the time. And people leaving for huge salary increases is common practice. Finding good people is really, really challenging. Keeping the best people is really, really challenging. I haven't seen it slow down. I've spoken to a few recruitment companies about the huge salary increase offers seem to still be continuing. So I think that's an area where, ultimately there's going to have to be, there will be a fallout from that.
Yeah, and I think that's already, that was December. I wonder now, I would say that already, that this has actually been addressed by the global kind of like the worldwide layoff. That may be a blessing in disguise for some of the SMEs that are looking and can't afford. There's nobody to recruit, basically, and those who are looking for huge salaries. So I think that, I think in our part of the world, we haven't actually experienced the same as the US as yet, but I think that we will shortly. And I think that there will be a freeing up of talent that should really maybe level the playing field a little.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got a couple of IT companies who are growing massively. A lot of IT companies are still growing. And some of the salaries people are leaving for, they are 50-60% salary increases, and they're on good money to start with. And it's bananas.
Yeah, but I mean, the average is 7% worldwide of global tech work forces, of the giant tech workforces are being laid off. So that's a fair amount of talent that's being freed up. We may have to have more realistic expectations.
Well, there's a combination of things here, though. So there is the tech layoffs, which certainly in Ireland is having a big impact. But there is also the salary expectations driven by the economic factors we talked about earlier. The cost of fuel, the cost of heating your house, the cost of all the other things, and inflationary kind of measures. So inflation running at 7-8% across our economies, and that's going to fuel salary expectations also. So it's definitely, this is not an issue going away.
Yeah,
sure. Certainly the message is clear of if you've got good people, look after them, develop them, value them, and the massive salary increases expectations and that they've been in reality for some makes it very difficult. But there's still the thing that we know is that people beyond salary, they want something more in work, going back to some of those previous things around sense of purpose, matching of values, feeling part and included, and those sorts of things. And certainly there are organizations, and we get the privilege of working with many, don't know, where they've got a good group of loyal people who've been there for a while, and even new people that come in and just go, I love working here, this is a great place to be. And that needs to sort of be about culture and inclusion, opportunity for growth, sorts of things.
I think that's the scary bit about if you compare the previous set of numbers in the previous section about purpose and all of that stuff, and leaders are saying, oh yeah, we're all over that, but they're still leaving for big money. And if that is true, that we're giving them all that stuff over and above, that we're told this is what people want, this is that whole, you give me purpose, you give me value, I get a sense of worth, I'm making a difference, I'm contributing, I'm getting all of that, but I still want another 25%. That then is a big issue. That then becomes significantly damaging for all companies, doesn't it, really? But so it will be interesting to see what the fallout of the
So is that
layout.
what Morris was saying? That basically, you know, we could have all of this great stuff, but at the end of the day, I need to pay the bills and cost of living rising, inflation.
Well, the irony is the day we're having this conversation on a day when I think most of Britain, most of the UK is on strike.
Yeah.
1 in 20%.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know? Have you given yourself a 20% pay rise this week, by the way,
Yeah.
ladies and gents?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just me there.
But maybe actually the other side of that, Mark, Nick and I were on a call last week, I think, and we were talking about 8% inflation and 10% respectively. And I think the people on the call, Nick, their inflation were running at...
Is it 250%?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
250%, goodness sake.
Yeah. And we went, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's an issue, but it's not that big an issue in relative. And yeah, we know that, don't we? That the challenging times in all kinds of situations are still opportunities for improvement, for growth, for change, positive change.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we look
You
at
as
the
a leader.
last section, which is you as the leader? So specifically, kind of what challenges are leaders facing that we are noticing? So here's the graph that particularly brings it up. And again, things that were a little bit interesting here. We've heard loads and loads about well-being, mental health, all of that thing, and to the point that I was expecting that to be one of the greatest challenges, and yet they've, some of those things have scored fairly low. People, seeing physical health not as a massive challenge, or a good number. Most people not experiencing it as a massive challenge. If it is, then it's a big challenge. Personal well-being, again, low percentage scoring, high on those, and even personal motivation. So it was a lot of the day-to-day nitty-gritty things around just creating time to plan, getting caught up in firefighting, crisis management, and then some stuff around just the kind of whole work life, switching off, keeping clear boundaries.
Yeah, you'd have to think that the top two items on that bar chart are related, wouldn't you? If 25% of people are having a difficulty with firefighting, crisis management, inevitably they'll be struggling to make the time for planning and strategy. So
Sure.
I think there's some kind of interrelatedness on some of these figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the number's high, isn't it? The number's high. 30% of people spending time firefighting, crisis management, not being able to get to strategy and planning.
And that's leading to the boundaries as well.
Yeah, but I would have thought that's a red flag for many organizations.
It's interesting because I mean that is definitely reflected in what I'm getting from the clients I work with. Every single time we're talking about time for planning, setting priorities, clarity of goals. We're always in crisis mode management. We're always fighting fires. So that is definitely reflected in what I'm seeing out in the marketplace. But the fascination is that, so what would you like to do about that? How do you think we can change that? And I don't know whether people have got the appetite to do what's needed to change that.
Yeah.
Because that requires significant change in people's behaviours.
Yep.
And these are the leaders we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I would, again, looking at this from the outside in, I would question the personal motivation, physical health, personal well-being. The reality of that is significantly higher than these people are saying it is. I think there's a degree of stoicism, a degree of I'm not going to acknowledge I've got that sort of issue. Because when you start talking to people and you break this thing down, I'm seeing this huge impact on individuals and senior levels with personal motivation, health and well-being.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Across the board, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, I think this is the This is the leader head.
Yeah.
Saying, yeah, I've got all these issues. I'm getting sucked into firefighting. But no, I'm all right.
Yeah.
It's not me, it's everybody else sort of mindset. And I see that a lot.
And I wonder here, the firefighting kind of leading to lack of time for planning and goal setting, where that feeds back into the team and their lack of clear goals and plans. So that would seem to come from the top.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would just put a slight kind of the opposite side of that, in that definitely agree, and we see that a lot. Equally, conscious that some of the leaders will have sent this out to, and that some that I know, but well, we've not, it's all anonymous. We've not tracked anything, but know that there has been a really positive emphasis on leaders needing to look after themselves, needing to prioritize physical health, mental health, working on balance. And I know some have really embraced that and done really well with that. And so genuinely, that won't be the issue that it might otherwise been. But what we do know is probably outside of the survey, a little bit what you're saying, Mark, and then also kind of outside of the scope of our survey. That's it's a huge issue, really, really big one.
Yeah, I think that we also should bear in mind here, leading on from what you say, Nick, the amount of our clients who, particularly during COVID, have put in some amazing practices to help protect their people in the midst of all of this kind of change, and done an awful lot really to doing it well. But at the end of the day, if what this data is telling us is that they're not getting the time, if that percentage is still in crisis mode, and if nothing's done about that, then either something has to change, or that just you just gather momentum as you go, and the crisis gets bigger.
Yeah, and it is everything about modern life is designed to keep us in that zone, isn't it? The apps and the conscious of hearing something recently where saying people, a lot of intelligent people are paid a lot of money to keep us addicted to the next ping. And that's what we're fighting against. I
had a conversation about exactly that this morning with a guy who runs his own business, and said he's still yet to find the app that will help him plan and organise his day around what you and I would call high payoff activities. And I felt like giving him a piece of paper and saying,
there you go.
You stop looking for the miracle cure, and just use a piece of paper with timelines and blocks of time, and schedule it out and do what you've said you're going to do. Don't need an app to do that. But he was searching for the app, searching for the miracle. Where's that magic bullet? Where's that fairy dust?
For sure.
Really fascinating.
We've taken probably more time than we intended, but it's so interesting.
As usual.
And of course, each one of these could be delved into, in much greater detail, and there are, other and more extensive bits of research and survey leadership and organizational surveys out there, but we thought it'd be really fascinating to get some of our own data, particularly around the people we're working with. And so trust that's been interesting, certainly interesting for us to discuss, hopefully interesting for you to participate in or listen in on and read. Any kind of closing thoughts, comments from each of you?
So really, probably we're LMI, so it's probably in closing, it would be remiss of us not to say that a lot of those things that were highlighted, the staff engagement, the motivation, the communication, the planning, the goal setting, all of that, this is what we do, as in these are the processes that we bring, and high payoff activities, again, what Mark's just been talking about. So, in any one thing, Mark mentioned kind of like, a big change in behaviors, that starts with the process. So, and that's LMI.
We best go pay a visit to some of our clients. have a further conversation.
Just before we go, I'd like to commend Mark on his Thin Lizzy hoodie. I think we'd have to make a comment on that.
Yeah.
And a bit of dancing in the moonlight might be what you need to get your life balance back, Mark. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Big fan. Big fan.
Nick, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think interesting. Again, thanks to everybody who's participated. I think it tells us some things that as we've discussed. I think the thing that really strikes me is just how much it comes down to those really simple basics of being clear every single day. This is what's important. This is what I should be doing. This is, these are the things I need to be focusing on with my team. These are the things I need to be not doing. All those things around managing workload and the pressures of leadership on a day-to-day basis. I think that's the thing that really matters, and investing in those things is huge.
I would agree.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to share this with all of the respondents.
Yeah, all the respondents. We've got the document and the we've been putting on the screen the hard data, so you can see exactly the percentage of respondents on each one. This document here, which is just a 4-pager, so it's not overly extensive, but it gives people something to read through, so they can see the highlights and then link that through to the data. And at the bottom of the page there's a link through to the actual data. So it's just 2, 3, 4 pages, and we'll send that out. And then we'll do it all again in 6 months' time and see what's changed.
Look forward to it.
Great. Well done, everyone.
Well done, guys.
Yeah.